I'm Mr. Asian Pie. I study history and most of my videos are explainer-type videos. You know, meant to inform and educate. If I ever do make an opinion video, I'll let you know up front that it's an opinion video. What's up, guys? This is Mr. Asian Pie. Yeah, we're talking about Mr. B! He had one good series, which I definitely did not plagiarize, and then the rest of his channel is reading off Wikipedia-type slop. Imagine if John D. Rudy had no art talent and replaced his blunt disdain for the American right wing, and just the British in general, with the snarky as fuck speech pattern unseen since the days of Channel Awesome. Mr. Beat is the manifestation of almost everything I hate about millennials. And yes, I checked, he's a millennial. It's the snark, the nonsensical appeal to authority arguments, selling his opinions as fact, his I was bullied in high school haircut, it's everything. Though the biggest sin of our good friend Matt Beat, I'm just gonna stick with Beat, the biggest sin is that our friend presents his videos as essentially unbiased, fact-based videos that should be the default when watching a Mr. Beat video, unless he specifically states that he's only expressing an opinion. Basically, everything I said is fact, unless I fucked it up, then I'm not culpable for spreading misinformation or narrative. I specifically highlight this attribute of Beat's content because he gets on a real high horse on this subject with other people.
He's a political commentator who's trying to push his worldview, his ideology.
More specifically, he doesn't like it when people he doesn't politically agree with spread their worldview. By the way, in the same stream, he glazed a cynical historian, a breadtuber who LARPs as a history channel. This is despite the fact that in his fact-based videos, he'll spout out personal opinions while framing them as factual statements. In his 2024 election video, he literally opens up with,
"Never before had so many Americans been so confidently wrong about so many things. This was the misinformation age, when facts no longer mattered, as it was so easy to find plenty of evidence that backed up your feelings."
Yes, you heard that right. He literally states that the majority of Americans are misinformed because his candidate lost. Later on in the video, while listing the achievements of the Biden presidency, he states,
"Speaking of which, Biden arguably pushed the country further left more so than any president since Richard Nixon. Heck, he even became the first president to join workers on strike."
Ignoring the fact that Biden ordered a shutdown on the railroad strikes, the Keystone Pipeline, and was generally anti-blue-collar worker. No less the fact that Biden's chosen successor in the election was so unpopular with the unions that they refused to endorse her campaign, which in one way made history. Also, for someone who is a professional educator, Beat makes a lot of opinionated statements that, as he'll put it, are
just plain wrong. Both Trump and Biden were weak candidates. They both faced opponents within their own political party when trying to get renominated.
While it is true that Biden and Trump weren't the most liked candidates, to say both were weak is disingenuous. Like, I get what he's trying to say, but most weak candidates don't tend to have a landslide victory in the primary. An actual weak candidate would just skip the primaries and be astroturfed from the position. Anyways, here's another thing. Notice how he says a factual statement while also peppering in his own opinions so he can still argue that what he says is overall true. Doesn't really matter anyways, because he would walk back his statement, at least when referring to Trump, not even 45 seconds later in the same video.
Meh, they didn't stand much of a chance. Trump was as popular as ever.
He also backhand shames RFK Jr. for being anti-Big Pharma, my favorite right-wing position. Genuine question, when did being anti-Big Pharma become a non-left-wing position? Here's the thing, Mr. Beat identifies himself as a left-wing libertarian, just like Movie Bob. But, while making this video, Beat released an absolute banger talking about why he stopped watching the great lard Joseph Rogani. Reason being, the chimp lord dared question the COVID narrative, because as we all know, the greatest libertarian position is to not question official narratives. Beat in general has a weird thing for not questioning the word of authority and calling anything that disagrees with the official narrative disinformation or misinformation. But who cares? The pandemic's over, and that's besides the point. Because despite Mr. Beast being a master at both the subjects of history and science, he's not a very good mathematician, specifically of the statistical variety. This motherfucker can't count. You know where this is going. Mr. Beat is a denier of Great Replacement theory, which has become the left-wing equivalent of denying climate change. Mr. Beat claims that white genocide is nothing more than an anti-Semitic conspiracy. The immigration trends of the past half-century are
normal patterns of immigration,
and that race, at least in America, is determined by political affiliation, not by race or genetics or socioeconomic factors that force wealthy black Americans to commit more crimes than poor white Americans. Besides, chud, you can't be replaced by another human. We are all one race, the human race. You know, have you ever wondered how factories used to deal with strikes? This is an actual conclusion, by the way. Let's break these points down one by one. According to Mr. Beat, Great Replacement and white genocide are nothing more than conspiracies that are
literally not backed by evidence at all.
and is just another reason for little chuddies like you to spray paint a swastika at your local Jewish neighborhood. This is despite the fact that it's pretty evident that white percentages in white majority nations have been declining rapidly, which as stated before, Beat claims are
normal patterns of immigration,
which is quite strange because this contradicts his claim that
The demographics are changing in every single country. And if you actually watch my own video, I say that.
So which is it? Is there no evidence of major natural demographic shifts ever occurring, or is it natural? Have you ever heard of the Bronze Age collapse? Even then, the idea that the contemporary wave of immigrants we're seeing today across the West is a natural trend is a blatant lie. Beat specifically focuses on the United States, most likely because the natural immigration numbers within the US best support his argument that what we're witnessing is a natural phenomenon, as long as you ignore the US undergoing a decline in immigration, which only suspiciously bounced back in number following the passing of the 1965 Immigration Act, with an entirely different racial and ethnic makeup. By the way, the 1965 Immigration Act replaced a series of national quotas known as the National Origins Formula, which were in place to preserve a national sense of cultural and racial cohesion within the United States. A cohesion that Mr. Beat claims isn't real and was entirely determined by political affiliation. Beat highlights that during the turn of the century there was a rampant discrimination against incoming Irish, Italian, and Eastern European immigrants by nativist Americans of Northern and Western European descent. While intra-ethnic and inter-religious tension did lead to a rise in the idea that certain European ethnicities weren't white, these ideas weren't recognized in any official capacity. If anything, the American government was quite science-based in their accounting of race, including most areas that were settled by Indo-Aryans. In the 1920 census, not only were Irish, Italians, and Slavs considered white, but so were Syrians, the Lebanese, Turkish, Asiatic Russians, Mexicans, and South Americans. According to the census, it was estimated that 13.2% of the American population was foreign-born, with the bulwark of the population being white, including the aforementioned populations of the previously listed. Contrast this with the immigrant groups that have come to America following the 1965 Immigration Act, or the natural wave as Beat puts it. We'll specifically be looking at the 2010 census, as it was estimated that 12.9% of the population was foreign-born, quite similar to the percentage of the 1920 census. And here's something of note. In the 2010 census, race is split among the Hispanic white and non-Hispanic white, which once again brings up Mr. Beat's point about race being a political identity. This is because Beat is correct about race being politically defined in the dumbest way possible. This is because in left-wing spheres, white is an insult and has nothing to do with genetics and everything to do with marginalization and victimization and how much you disagree with them politically. This is why East Asians are often considered white in left-wing circles, because East Asians are culturally and economically well integrated. Right-wing minorities are also often labeled as white by the left because they committed the horrible crime of having a different opinion. That's how you end up with articles about the blackface of white supremacy or the rise of Latino white supremacy. So Mr. Beat is correct that race is a political label. You just have to be politically left-wing for it to be true. He quite literally used the argument, my political side believes this is how it works, thus I'm right. Actual circular logic. It'd be funny if he wasn't a teacher. Oh yeah, what was this segment on about again? Oh right, census data. According to the 2010 census, only 12% of immigrants came from Europe. This is compared to 53% from Latin America and a whopping 28% from Asia. Even if you disregard the diversity of Latin American immigrants and count them all as white, only 65% of immigrants would be considered white as compared to essentially all of them just a century prior. And once again, this is ignoring the racial diversity of Latin Americans, disregarding the ethnic makeup of mestizos, castizos, or mulattoes, just labeling them all as white. This is not a normal trend that is just a mere continuation of pre-existing statistical patterns. If you look at the immigration patterns of Europe, Beat's argument falls apart even more because there's no natural wave of immigrants to start the trend off of. Either Mr. Beat doesn't understand what the term natural means, or he's intentionally lying to make a point. Pick your poison. Is this certified educator extremely incompetent or being intentionally malicious to push an agenda? If anything, that's the real black pill of this video. Alright, so maybe white genocide is happening, and maybe this isn't a natural continuation of migration trends that have happened during the early industrial era. But
these immigrants already share American values. That's why they're coming here.
Which, yeah, I guess you're right if American values are extorting local residents, shitting in public, raping women, and beating children. In Mr. Beat's America, it's patriotic to beat children. I guess you could say he's putting the beat in Mr. Beat. Oh yeah, Beat doesn't seem to understand what the term replacement means. He states that you can't be replaced because the person replacing you is also a person. Or how he elegantly puts it in his smug tone,
they can't replace us because they are us.
Congratulations, you missed the point. When replacing a tire, you have to take out a tire that's being replaced to put in a new tire. You can't just slap on another tire and drive around with 5 wheels. You can't just hire a new professor and put them in a pre-existing class where the old professor is still employed and teaching. But apparently that's how replacement works in Mr. Beat's mind. Also, this is more of a personal gripe, but when watching his more politicized content, I noticed that Mr. Beat will make a claim about someone or something, not elaborate why that's the case, and just move on.
I'm not going to react to this because I already watched clips of it. This guy, I don't know if you're aware of this. This might affect some of your thinking. I mean, I don't want to you should still watch it, but just know that this guy is a white supremacist.
It's like every argument he can make is either an appeal to authority, ad hominem, or just adding a false claim to a true statement so he can still make the point that the overall statement is true. Another thing I personally find funny is that Mr. Beat himself is guilty of the Great Replacement Theory red flags that he warns his audience to be wary about. The entire video is set within a limited framing by only focusing on American immigration patterns before he applies American immigration statistics to prove that what's occurring in Europe as well is also natural. I'm not calling for an end to Mr. Beat because he's a prime example for everything wrong with the American education system. And just like the American education system, you have to ask yourself, is it stupidity or is there malicious intent? Also, everyone I talk to about Mr. Beat says he looks like a child molester. I don't know why, I guess he does to most people. I always thought he looked more like a Skyrim NPC. Anyways, you might be saying that's slander and an ad hominem, and you'd be correct because Beat will likely preface this video to his audience by saying that I'm a white supremacist or something, and then slap on a fake sense of nuance by saying that hopefully him claiming that I'm a white supremacist to his audience doesn't change his audience's view of me.
This theory is manipulative because it equates normal patterns of immigration with murder. Now, obviously, if they literally did that, then you and I wouldn't fall for the messaging. Therefore, the messengers have to be a little bit more subtle about it.
This has been Mr. Asian Pie. See you on the flip, and don't be stupid.